The thoughts and views of this podcast and the sole views of the curators of this podcast is not the views of United States Postal Service.
And we are back. That is right. On the Route Podcast. This is episode 30, right?
30.
30. Steph Curry.
So, yeah,
You know what I mean? You know, we doing it right back at it, letting y'all know, as always, doing our thing. Today we have a special guest with us, but first, as always, let our brothers introduce ourselves. To my left.
Alright, y'all know what it is. This is Black. We back out here giving y'all information and our experiences and our job. So, there you go.
It's B Morgan. We here with another guest, another person to give you vital information for everyone. You know, this is very, very special. Something good for you guys. So, let's get started.
All right, welcome back. This is Aaron, and let's take this ride.
And our special guest, can you please introduce yourself to our fans? Let us know your position in the post office and how much time you got so far.
My name is Derek Blanks. I'm currently a CCA, just coming off my first year, and I'm at Roxborough Station.
Okay,
Roxborough's finest.
So, I mean, Mr. Blanks, what we're going to get into is we want to know just, a little background, pre-post office. You want to tell the people if you don't mind?
Pre-post office, I can sum it up in one sentence. I was raised with the belt and the Bible. That puts me in the year 1985. My father is a retired postal worker. He was a mail clerk down in Jacksonville, Florida. He's a Navy vet. And so order, discipline, and structure were very vital to my upbringing. And things were explained and everything was a lesson. So that fueled how I got into certain things. Like most young men my age, I started playing sports through the YMCA. Everything was a lesson at the YMCA. It wasn't just basketball or soccer or things like that. So they had their lesson. I was active like most of my age, active in the church and things of that nature. I think when I got to high school, especially around the age of 16, the fact that my dad was a veteran appealed more to me. Just because, at the time I didn't think I could go to college. I didn't really think I wanted to, but I knew I wanted to do something that would offer me a good lifestyle. So at 16, I signed up for the United States Air Force in their delayed entry program.
Okay.
So
I didn't even know they had that.
delayed entry. Well, back in 2002, delayed entry program was for people who knew they wanted to go into the service, and they could go ahead and sign the paper saying, "Hey, as soon as I graduate, I'm ready to go."
So how did you find out about that?
Being from Jacksonville, being a military town, it was a part of the daily discussion for young boys around the age of 15, 16, 17, because, around that age, they try to prep you for the SAT, the ACT, go visit this college and that college, where you had some young men who was just like, look, I want to make a good living for myself, but college isn't it. So, in the military circles, maybe their grandfather or their dad was that, hey, go talk to the recruiter, see what you can do. And delayed entry was how I began. So I was in the delayed entry program for 2 years.
So for people out there, is that just something only reserved for like Florida, or is that like nationwide?
I don't believe it is reserved for Florida. I think if you go down to your local recruiter and ask that question and have that conversation with them, I think they can lead you in a good direction. Now, I will forewarn that recruiting is about numbers. So I'm going to tell you the best story I can to recruit you. So if you don't feel comfortable having that conversation by yourself, I always advise you take somebody that you can trust preferably if you know someone that was in the service, so that they can be a filter to that conversation.
So you were in the Air Force, correct?
I was in the Air Force.
So let me ask you this question, because I almost did that myself years ago, back in like '04. And the recruiter I was talking to was talking about how the boot camp was way easier than like the Marines and the Army, and how the barracks were like you had your own room, but you guys shared a living room space. Like the way he showed me the design, it was like everything was centered as like the living room, and then there was 4 offshoots for everybody's individual rooms. Was that how it really was, or was that smoke and mirrors?
There's half truths to that.
Mm-hmm.
When you go through boot camp, whether it's Navy, Air Force, Marine, Army, Coast Guard, it's tough. It's mentally and emotionally, and then if you're a person who's developing in this sphere of life, spiritually tough. Now, the running joke between the veterans is that we have it the easiest.
That's what he said. Because you guys are like the brains of the military. You guys are the smart ones.
That, I'm going to say this as an Air Force vet, yes. But once you get in, once you get in, you understand every service has a lane.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fast forwarding here, but this is, I began to struggle with in the military, the competitiveness. There's friendly competition, but then there's some competition that is just negative and kills morale.
Okay.
Because we're all here to serve a greater mission. My focus in that greater mission is dominance of the air.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to make sure that the pilot and the plane get to where they need to get to as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Army and the Marines, they dominate the land. I respect that role, because if they didn't dominate the land, a lot of things would have went different throughout history.
Absolutely.
That's definitely true.
The Navy, they help us fight an offensive and or defensive war from the water and underneath. So I began to understand that everybody has a lane. And yes, competition can fuel us to be better, but competition shouldn't put one vet down versus another, one service down versus another. And unfortunately, in this modern day society, we can begin to look at our services, our branches of service like that, and that it can become a bit much. But
You're talking about the American Military Cultural Society.
I don't want to say my fellow brothers and sisters in arms do that, because we have that understanding, but it's always those from the outside.
Okay. Okay.
You know, because so the boot camp situation, when I went through boot camp, it was 6 weeks in San Antonio, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the barracks were nice, and yes, the food was good, and yes, you know, it wasn't as physically demanding as my Army brethren and sisters went through, or my Marines, or even my Navy or Coast Guard went through. But it's still mentally and emotionally taxing. It's still a grind of having to do something that you're not used to doing, don't want to do, every day, starting at 4 in the morning and ending at 9:45 at night.
Yeah.
Jeez,
So
Lord.
did you have on your wish list, did you get anything that you actually wished for as far as where you wanted to be sent to?
I went into it with the wish list concept, but then when I went to my first duty station, Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, I loved it there. It's in the middle of a cornfield. So in the wintertime, you just see the snow and the asphalt of the ground. In the spring and summer, you just see the cornfield. I loved it there.
So was everything you asked for, was it domestic? Like as far as places you thought you would
I wanted to, at 18, I wanted to go to Korea. I wanted to
Okay.
go abroad. That just wasn't my lot in life.
Okay.
to experience the military that way. However, I was blessed to go to Qatar for my first deployment and Kuwait for my second, and that was my last. And those experiences, I would advise anybody, if you get a chance to go to the Middle East, not just Israel, but if you can, go to the Middle East. Now, I'm not Muslim. However, when I was in Kuwait during Ramadan. And for those of you who don't know, never been to Kuwait, imagine 115-degree weather.
Mm.
The only thing out there is sand and sun. So that the heat's not going anywhere. But I watched these individuals, these men, these women, these families out there working. But then when the call to prayer came on, in this heat, this same heat that I can escape and go into an air-conditioned dorm, the call to prayer came on, and I watched, say, about 200 workers all stop and do and pray, and that forever changed me.
Wow.
That forever changed me. You know, we've heard growing up. Some of us may not have, but we've heard about Paul on the road to Damascus.
Mm-hmm.
That was my moment right there. My whole worldview changed at that instance. So I would advise anyone, you know, not for a vacation, yes, but for a cultural experience. This would be a trip that I would ask you go on with your heart. Go to the Middle East. If you can experience the Middle East, go to the Middle East.
And for safety purposes, currently in 2024, if you're going to go to the Middle East, the countries I would recommend you not actually travel to right now would be Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq. They're not in the best conditions right now, and also Libya. But everywhere else, I think you should be pretty fine.
Check with the State Department website on that. Do your research, yes, but if you can, I would advise everyone, if you get a chance, go to the Middle East.
So with that being said, in your experience in the military, what are some things that you experienced that have helped you in your postal career so far?
I lean on my need for structure, my need for order, and my need for clear definitions.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Oh man.
like anything in life, you don't get 100% of what you need and or want. But fast forwarding to my postal career, I will say my postal career has allowed me to grow more emotionally and spiritually, so that in my postal career, when I don't get that 100% of what I want,
Mm-hmm.
I can still come back to what I do have and thrive with that.
Gotcha.
Now, you know, working in the postal service, you said you don't, you know, I don't think any of us get 100% of what we want or what we need because of how the post office is structured with the people that work there.
Oh man.
So you say you come back and you always have what you need. I'm assuming that's outside of the postal service.
I would, for the most part, outside the postal service, yes. But I'm such a lover of wisdom that, and I wish this happened more. I wish older carriers and younger carriers had more conversation, because one reason I pay a lot of homage to the older carriers is not just because of the influence my dad has on me and the stories I've heard from him and those carriers that did it in the 80s, but one reason I pay another reason I pay homage to them, because they did it, I would say, when it was not only heavier mail, but it was more blatant, I don't care about you.
Really? That was more blatant then than now?
I think from the stories I've heard, prime example, in 2004, 5, and 6, I remember always asking my dad why the national news was always talking about how broke the post office was. Like, here it is, the post office is delivering my mail. I remember getting packages back then in 4, 5, and 6. The post office delivers my packages. I go to the post office, they have my stamps, they have my boxes. People, I remember growing up, I've only seen people wait in line, either in the grocery store or in the post office. And I used to ask myself, how can they always say the post office is going through? Well, then, my dad began to sit me down and tell me about the desire to privatize the post office.
Since back then, wow.
The desire to, make it more business-like. So, honestly, I'm having this conversation with my dad because this is the way my dad provided for my mom, myself, and my sister. So I pay homage. I try to pay as much homage to a lot of the postal workers that've been doing it since then. But then now that I'm carrying, I try to always pick a brain. How can I better carry this route, or what can I look for on that route? And I just wish those opportunities were more, because I don't see that. I see, we're told as CCAs, don't come back to that office with more than 15 minutes left on the clock.
Oh, yeah.
Don't come back. But then a lot of the older carriers, they come back, they do what they need to do for decompression, and I'm like, that's a time to where you could really talk to a senior carrier and be like,
True.
hey,
True.
I just went through this snow. Should I be feeling like this? I just, hey, I had a slip and fall today. I didn't hurt myself, but it made me feel this way. Is that normal? But a lot of those opportunities, I think, aren't there because on one side, if I'm a CCA and I come back with 30 minutes left on the clock, I'm in fear of being sent out, or what does that say about me that I came back 30 minutes early? So I think, that's a conversation that we can have, older carrier to younger carrier.
So as a CCA, how do you feel like you're being treated? Like emotionally, etc.
As a CCA, I feel like, in my experience, I've been treated like a human being.
Really?
In my experience, yes. And
Let him finish.
here's why I say human being. Because I think it's too big of a ask to ask for fairness. Because I'm going to have this conversation breaking it up management, non-management.
Okay.
Management may see one thing as fair, and as me as non-management may see another thing as fair. I can't answer that question in terms of justice, that I've been treated justly, because management may see one thing as being just, and me as non-management may see another thing as being just. But I can say, in my experience, which has been very limited, I've been treated as a human being.
Okay.
Now, in being treated as a human being, have I won some and lost some? I've won some and I've lost some. have I experienced, has the grind of being a CCA become real? It has. And I don't think there's nothing that can be done to prepare for that grind, except you have to know what you need when you look in the mirror every morning. You have to know why you want to do this and why you're going to do this.
What is your why?
Yeah, that's definitely what it's about.
Yeah, I get that. And you're saying you would treat it like a human being because the fairness differs between management and non-management.
Mhm.
But what happens when management knows that for this situation, fairness, specifically carriers, in a situation of, let's say, fairness and courtesy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, technically, they don't owe you a courtesy,
Mm-hmm.
but for the sake of morale in the station and, cohesiveness, you think they should be fair to a carrier that's, let's say, like they like to be more fair to carriers with more seniority than carriers with less seniority. Like we had this conversation on a podcast before about how you divvy out and pick overtime when it's forced. And I've been told myself by people in the union, because we call it union hall, that the order of forcing is supposed to start from the junior carrier up.
And how you communicate. that
How you
situation.
communicate, exactly. How you talk to people means everything. Rather you need them to, as a CCA, to go back out, or even a regular to go back out, or to get them to do overtime or more overtime, or pivots or whatever you need to get done. But when I talked to the union hall about this situation, they said, well, you're not wrong, but carriers with more seniority will feel a certain kind of way.
And let me jump in at that section. This is where, as you said before, having order and having things be in line a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
People in management have a moral compass the same level that you have.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, give you a prime example. I had an experience where I saw a fellow CCA when I was a CCA. He was an active duty still service person.
Mm-hmm.
And as you currently did today, worked on Amazon Sunday as we did. And I think it was a Veterans Day that fell on a Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And our supervisor actually had a nerve to ask the manager, could that particular person work on
Wow.
Veterans Day?
Wow.
And the manager actually, and I'll say his name because he did the right thing. Like Frank Bell actually looked at the actual supervisor. Like, are you kidding me? Like, he's a service person. Like, it's Veterans Day is in honor of what he does. How you gonna ask him to work? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so it's like there are people, they have moral compass, but some of them just ignore it because they just only care about themselves and getting the job done so they can make themselves look good.
Which is the main
So it
thing.
depends on the individual that you're working for that will actually do the right thing.
This leads me back to a conversation that me and my dear brother Artist had.
Brother Artist.
I'm gonna ask it academically so you don't get in trouble.
Okay.
Are you going to be an entity that's solely about your profit?
Yeah, I remember.
Or are you going to be an entity that is not going to be driven by profit? I think if you think down that line, you arrive at a question of, does profit dictate how you treat people? And if it is your drive for profit that dictates how you treat people, then I would think you have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, if I want to treat people well, if I want to treat people justly, if I want to know what it is to give people grace and leniency and or mercy, then you have to have a clearer perspective on your definition of profit. And I think that's a conversation that it was started in '08 and '09 during the Great Recession, because I don't know if anyone noticed all these business ethic classes and, you know, moral leadership classes and talks began to happen because one sector of America felt that profit was running people to do and make certain decisions. And so I think we have to have that conversation again and really have the conversation from the standpoint of, you know what, no, I don't see anything wrong with being profit driven. But at the same time, let's, as human beings, have the conversation, because I believe that plays a part in how you set up your structure, how you lead it, and how you manage it.
But you can,
Go ahead.
but you can be profit driven, but you can be people centric, because the people drive the profit. Because you can't have profit without the people. So,
Right, but I think what happens is, and what is currently happening, we don't want to have conversations that require layers.
And to touch on what both you guys just said, because both you guys are absolutely right. The reason why they don't want to have this conversation, because then that brings up a deeper conversation, like you said, about what type of society that we have. This is for the people that are at home watching this and listening on SoundCloud. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, by all means subscribe. And comment below if you have anything you want to input to this conversation. Well, this is a capitalistic society that we have here. What people don't understand about capitalism is it is money driven. It's not people driven. It's not skill driven in terms of valuing the people who have skill. It's about making profit. And as Aaron said, you can be profitable and still be people centric. Not in capitalism, because when capitalism was designed, it wasn't about what people feel like. Because in order for capitalism to work, somebody has to be poor. And that's the main thing that people don't want to talk about. Like you said, that's why they don't want to have these conversations, because you would have to explain how capitalism actually works. It works when there are many people that are have-nots. So now you can force them to do what you want them to do so they can make a living, which drives the profit. You know what I'm saying? So we live in a country where if it feels like you're not being treated like a human, you're just there, you're just a number, yeah, that's the system that we live in.
Because you are.
Yeah, because you are. That's the system that we live in. Sorry to say, like, you know what I mean? Like, and that, like you said, we need to have that conversation to actually change the system. But now we're getting into a whole nother innuendo that these people at the top of the system that are benefiting the most, they don't want to talk about that because they're winning from it.
Right. Hold on, I got a question for you real quick. I just thought about it while he was saying, you know, we live in a country that's money driven. How do you live in a country that's money driven and the money ain't backed by nothing?
He can attest to this, being a military service person.
Oh, man.
Now, like I said, you're very well educated, you're very informed. I'm pretty sure you're very aware of that America as a whole, we're not number one in education, we're not number one in healthcare, we're not number one in mental health in terms of how our citizens are feeling. The one thing that we do the best is military.
and lock people up, because we number one in that too.
Like no one, no disrespect, but no one kills better than we do. And what people fail to realize is when we say that we're trillions of dollars in debt as a nation, you would think, well, if we owe all this money, ain't we supposed to be broke? How are we still running around doing? You can have $1 million on your side of the fence, and I can have 10,000 weapons. You only have 2. Yeah, you got all the money and all the resources, but if I need something from you, you gonna give it to me because you know what I got over here.
I think, and I'm going to admit from the onset, it was after my reading of President Eisenhower's biography that I just began to think about the military industrial complex. What is this military industrial complex? because I served.
Mhm.
I wore the uniform. I submitted my desire to that of the unit.
Mhm.
I was not in the DOD at that oak table negotiating deals or advising the leadership. That I wasn't that. I was an airman. But after reading that, I really just began to passively think about what is this? And here it is, 1959 or 60 when he said this. I'm like, the military-industrial complex. You know, what is this thing? And so that thought comes back to mind because, like you said, we can protect, and if you are an aggressor against us, we can deal with that. But then, like you say, when you peel back the layers, and it doesn't make you unpatriotic to have a layered conversation,
Mhm.
because these topics require that. If I know I have 10 nuclear weapons, and you're a country that just wants one, I can charge you whatever I want for that.
Mhm.
And you may very well do whatever you need to do just to get that one. And so just think, we may not be the best in healthcare or the best in education, but if we have one or two institutions that are world renowned,
Mm-hmm.
okay, hold. You want to come to this institution? I know who you know. Tell them to give me a call. And the whole conversation about power is probably had there. And so you think about, just think about that in every sector, whether it's economics, healthcare, whatever it is. Let's think to the next level. Let's the next layer, because a lot of it, as you stated earlier, capitalism. I think people still understand it as a 1980s slogan,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and not
Right.
not what it actually
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
Because you'll have some people who are pro-capitalism. Tell you, America's not a capitalistic country. When you look at the actual structure of the economy, they don't practice capitalism, because capitalism is, I think, if you really understand, it's more brutal than what we actually see. When we talk about the haves and the have-nots, if it were if we were a true capitalist country, there would be nothing to stop the Teslas or the Apples of the world from owning everything.
True. That's true.
Because if they had the money, if JP Morgan had the money, and they said, we want to own all the other banks, if we were a true capitalistic country, there would be nothing to stop that.
So let me ask you this. That goes back to my original statement earlier, where, like you said, you have the money, but you don't have the guns. J.P. Morgan doesn't have the United States military's weaponry. So yeah, we'll let you get your billion whatever dollars, but you ain't about to buy everything. Even though I know you could, but I'm not gonna let you, because if you try to, you know what we're gonna do.
Exactly.
So what system would that be when you have a guy that sits at the top of capitalism, and you have another guy that, I don't need to be the top because I got this that enforces what I want done?
I
What do you call that?
I don't know the name of that system, but I do know, again,
U.S. system.
we faced this situation in, I believe, 2007, 2008, 2009. But back then, the boogeyman was who? The hedge fund owners.
Yeah.
the venture capitalists.
Yep.
They were the bad guys. Their actions were causing the American economy to fall. So wherever there's it's funny. I think in a society and in a culture today, who could be the next boogeyman? Like right now in the NBA, who's unsportsmanlike?
I see Draymond
Draymond
Green.
Green.
Dylan Brooks.
They're the boogeyman in the NFL. Who's kind of shady? Who doesn't paint with the right strokes and the right tone?
Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, guys.
They're the boogeyman. But see,
I've
sometimes
been a boogeyman for a long time.
sometimes
You're not gonna do this.
You earn that status.
I'll say
Yeah.
the Raiders.
The Raiders. Not
Sometimes,
Raiders anymore.
well, let's talk about the Raiders.
Las Vegas.
Al Davis has always stated
When they
the
win.
NFL came after me.
Mhm.
I never came after the NFL.
Mm.
But because he was one of the few, this is my reading of history, and this is my commentary from watching the documentaries. When he stood up to the shield, that team and that organization has always been labeled the boogeyman.
Yeah.
So what do you have now? And I'm not I don't watch the NFL as much as I used to. Number one, I'm working. Number two, it doesn't interest me because I don't like this. That's my friend. I'm not gonna knock his block off culture. I
Talk about it, man.
I don't like this.
Oh,
I don't like
God.
the culture of athlete that we're in. I give them their props, but I don't like. I just don't. So I don't partake. But right now, you have 32 owners.
Yeah.
None of them will even tell Roger Goodell when he's wrong.
I think Jerry
Jerry Jones. Jerry does it a little
bit.
bit. Jerry does it to a certain degree.
He does it.
beyond arrogant.
See,
He
to
does
me,
it respectfully.
to me,
Yeah.
here's how the lane we can put Jerry Jones in. My team is worth $5 billion. So I'm going to say what I need to say, and you're going to recognize that when I say it, I bring $5 billion to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because then here's my next question. Jerry Jones can say it, but I believe it's the Green Bay Packers who, they're not owned by one individual.
Right.
Owned by
Yeah.
their own people.
Committee, yeah.
They're owned by a committee.
Yeah.
So if the committee was like, Brother Roger, we understand what you're trying to do, but we have to disagree with you. Could they do that?
Yeah.
Well,
nah, that's a
based
certain
on
amount of
Roger
money,
Goodell and
money-wise.
the decisions that he makes, he's kind of like a company man. He listens to the
He
owners.
works for the owners, yeah.
Yeah,
he
he,
works
he
for
doesn't
the
try to really enforce his power in ways like Adam Silver does, where he'll actually hold somebody accountable harsher than probably the actual team would.
And put their feet to the fire. Yeah.
So we can get on this topic then. Adam Silver may be attempting to be a leader in the sports business. Whereas, and I am not discrediting Mr. Goodell, and I'm not discrediting the NFL, but maybe Roger Goodell is just trying to manage
There you go.
a commodity. See, I think when you're just trying to manage it, you act and you enforce certain things versus if you're leading it. Here's an example I'll give. I read an excerpt from Steve Jobs, his biography, and then I read some interviews that he did. He may not have been the nicest person in the world to work with. It's agreed. He was not the nicest person in the world to work with. But look at what he was able to do, not only through his life, but what are we still talking on after his death?
Yeah.
What stock is still a top pick
Yep.
after his death? So, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, does he have to lead Apple,
No.
or does he have to manage Apple?
Man,
So let me ask you this: looking at the post office, because it's run by a board of governors.
I was going that way.
Because it's run by a board of governors, what do you think they're doing, from your perspective so far of being in the post office?
I would say, considering the post office has been around for a while.
1776.
I will say this, and here's the sources at which lead to what I want to say. Again, my dad's retired, did 32 years as a mail clerk. So the decisions the post office has made allowed me to eat, allowed me to have shelter, and allowed me to do everything that I needed to do to get here. I'm also a consumer. I need a stamp every now and then. I'm also, my parents faithfully, when they need to mail me something, they still use the post office. I think the conversations we're having today, I believe, need to be had, if they're not already being had, at that level. And we need to look at the structure. Because one thing I can say, and this is from my military experience, my drill instructor led all 32 of us. It started and stopped with him. I had assistant drill instructors, but his name was on my class. It started and stopped with him. When we couldn't do push-ups, they came to him. When we couldn't fold our shirts, they came to him. When our marching was not on point, they came to him. We need to look at the structure, because when you have problems, or when there are discussions that need to be had, who do you come to? Who sets the vision? Who makes it plain? And again, I understand in life you're not going to get that 100% of the time. Probably not even 50. But I just think these things are important. Who's going to be on the front line with me?
You have to be a buck stopper.
You know, who's going to plant their feet and be like, I'm not leaving here until this one thing is fixed. Does the structure allow for that type of not only leadership, but leadership development? And these are all thoughts that, working for the post office, that I think about, because I think we have made, in today's times, and this is just how I was raised. You lead from the front. It was said earlier in this that you have to know how to talk to a carrier that's been out in the elements for 10 hours. But how do you learn that if you've never been out there? That's not a knock to the person that's never been out there. But it was shared with me when I first started by Miss Allie.
Wow.
She told me, you talk to a carrier differently that you know has been out there. Wet socks, wet boots. You talk to them differently. Not saying you play favorites, but
Empathize.
you empathize. And I don't want to do your listeners I want to be just. You have an hour that you need covered. You have an hour that you need to get this hour out.
Mm-hmm.
And I come through the door. I'm soaked. I may be cold. Now, mind you, I'm a CCA, so I know I'm going to get that. I know I'm going to have to do this hour. But I'm not a supervisor. I'm not a manager. How are you feeling? How is it out there? It's good to hear. Go sit down for a little bit, but I got to ask something from you. Now, that is completely different, and I think that's a way to have that conversation versus, hey, I got that hour over there, I need you to get that.
Or as soon as you walk through the door, hey, you,
Come here. I need Scott.
I got this hour. You gotta take this hour out. Go do this hour.
Or the thing is, what we used to do like certain times where if it's two CCAs come into it, y'all can split up basically, or like that's the thing too. But sometimes what I hate they used to do, like when I was CCA, they would know the fact that matter. Say you're faster than him, or if it's basically like, well, all right, I know you can get it done faster than him, basically, so I'm gonna give it to you. Or the fact of the matter is, I need to get done because it's sitting there because it's on my back from management basically too. And the fact that, like you said, I can be in an environment that's 10 times worse. Like we all can speak of more so like maybe more than you, but we know all been elements basically where like, all right, they shooting out here basically. Like y'all really want to send me back out in an element, you know where we at in this environment for it's like neighborhood wise. They're shooting out here. You don't care about my safety. And then I didn't got a super. Me and him got in arguments with the supervisor at the station. Like, yo, I'm not going back out. Like, I'm not.
Tell who you want to tell. I ain't going back.
Well, yeah, most of the time they don't even tell you.
No, but it's not even that. You talking about something?
Yeah, I was just saying, like, you can call who you want to call. I'm not going back out there, like,
exactly.
for my safety, so.
Like, he had a route before. Like I said, we both had, like, experience, like, where my experience like that was in North Philly, where I said I was just been there, basically, because I had a situation where I was unassigned regular. Like, them two told me to bid to another station. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to take it because I was getting used and abused like I was a CCA. Like, I was an unassigned regular. I'm like, they came to me and said, yo, look, they going to keep doing this to you. You either leave or keep taking it. So I left. All right, cool. So I went to a station where the point is, in North Philly, shooting. It's gunshot every day. I'm like, I'm not going back out. I'm not from this environment. I don't know a neighborhood, basically. Like, and I'm on overtime I don't know. And we had 3 different zip codes. So that stuff happens a lot more than, like you said. Previous with our station, okay, you can do that. But not everywhere you can do that and say, all right, I need you to go back out. Like, no, it ain't what you, what's the reason? Oh, it's just, ain't shit over there. Do you not care about me as a human being or how I feel, or like you said, about my safety?
And then, you know what's funny? Because we were talking Blanks, yesterday about how they're, they're trying to consolidate stations now. They're trying to, like, bring stations into, together, like, eradicate certain locations. I think the reason behind that, especially in the Philadelphia district, is because the management number is very low in terms of, people getting into management. Because there are people retiring every year. You know what I mean? There's nobody really stepping into these positions to fill, take over the reins. The reason for that is because they don't know how to talk to each other, even in management. They don't know how to talk to each other. So us as carriers and people in craft, we see how they're getting talked to by upper management. We're like, you're not about to go do that. Like, for what? So that person can talk to me like that? How they talking to you? You know what I'm saying? And that gets into the morale of the management position. And that's why the numbers are so low. And let me say this, like, for the people that's listening, like, across, the nation that listen to our pod, you know what I'm saying? Like, one of the biggest issues why there's mismanagement is because people are cowards, bro. At the end of the day, people are cowards. They're not confrontational. And granted, I'm not knocking people for not being confrontational. My thing is, have you read the Elm? Have you read what the job description is? If you do what the job description is, you can never be fired. Or you just have a nice lawsuit against. Because no matter what the person says above your head, if you can't cover that time because it was a shooting on the route, you have every right to tell the person above you, I can't send anybody out there right
What's
now.
that paper you put on there? What's that paper? 1571.
Yeah.
It is. Like, I can't send anybody out there. It's not, it's not right. There are police there. It was a shooting, et cetera, et cetera. There are things in place for us to do our job efficiently and safely and from the management side that covers you when you follow those things.
I think words like confrontation need to be redefined.
I was about to ask you.
I think our parents had a definition of confrontation that is completely different than what we define confrontation is.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's not confrontational to want to take the conversation off the floor and give you my viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
It's not confrontational for me to ask, hey, can we tone this down a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
But I think in today's society, and I specifically say today's society because we see a cultural war going on between the male and the female.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we look at that cultural war, it's been going on since antiquity.
It's been going on in the Western world since antiquity. Let's put it that way.
No, the Eastern world too.
No.
No,
I don't know as much. I don't know as much.
if you prescribe, if you the story of Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not giving a direct quotation, but something in that story says it's your place she desires. Now, I'm not going to get theological because I'm no theologian.
Go by Adam's place.
Right.
Yeah.
But what was his defined place?
Leader.
Mm-hmm.
So this war has been going on since back then. But now, again, let's have the conversation. Who's fueling this war? Because there are some times in some spaces where I feel as though you can't disagree.
Yes.
Or not even disagree, but I can't offer another vantage point. For fear. So I think let's again, if we can find the lens to look at each other as a human being, we can then have the conversation about the structure, about the situations in the field, about what I need on this end and things like that.
So you are a shop steward, correct?
Yes.
Now, how would you say certain approaches and tactics that you use have helped in that particular communication?
I'm gonna be completely honest. The type of person I am, it's a lot of listening and learning right now. Because there's a lot you have to dig into, there's a lot you have to read into, and if I'm gonna be honest, as a man, a lot of these situations predate my postal career. So right now I am listening and I am learning. But I will say this, I don't thrive in elevation. Let's sit down, let's talk, let's bring reason. I don't like an audience. That's one thing. I don't like an audience because human nature is, I believe, when you have an audience, you perform.
Yes.
When it's
When
me and you,
When you perform, productivity is not high on your list. So I don't like an audience. So the type of shop steward I desire to be, let's sit down and let's talk about this. Even when I'm dealing with the craft, I don't want an audience when I'm talking to members of the craft or when I'm talking to management. That's one thing that I've seen in my brief experience. I don't want that because we've all seen when it becomes performative.
Yep.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh
man.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when it becomes performative, how productive does it become?
It
Not at
doesn't.
all.
Instructing.
Zero.
Not at all.
It doesn't, and you end up doing stuff, kicking certain people out and stuff like that, and then the process of like delivering the mail gets affected, and customers get affected.
That's the main
Workers get affected.
thing. Workers and customers are main two things.
Like if somebody is on the floor and they throw out their Academy Award performance and send somebody home, and they don't bring them back for a while, that route still has to be covered for that length of time that person is not there.
Exactly.
You do it all for ego for what?
Yeah, all because you know, like you said, Adam and Eve, want to be the leader.
Well, there was a story my dad shared with me about early on. Now, let's go back if we can. This was, my dad started as a PTF in '84. So back then, there was a strong union, non-union vibe within the station. And he used to tell me, he grew up professionally, that is, where you didn't eat the Subway sandwiches, you didn't eat the pretzels, you didn't eat the cookies, you didn't go to the parties, because
Soften you up.
they were always going to come back with something else. So what that showed me, yes, there's meat to take off that bone, yes. But you were already discounting that person as a human being just because they were a manager. And that manager was discounting you as a human being because you were a part of the craft. So then it becomes a power dynamic. I'm not going to ask you.
Oh, the man tell you.
I'm going to demand you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you. And then, let's be honest. If I'm 25 and my dad at the time when he was born in '53 and he started in '84, I'm bad at math. I'm sorry, but if I'm 25 and then I'm in my mid-30s raising a family, and you come to me with no handle, no good morning, no good afternoon,
I'm a grown man.
good day, hi, hello. I need you to, no, not I need you. You're going to do this. How would that affect any human being?
Yeah.
25, they losing their mind.
Yeah.
At 30, you might look at them and be like, I do need this job.
Yeah.
And you'll do it anyway just because you need the job. At 25, it's like, I got time.
Yeah,
But I'm not gonna give you an A+ effort, I'm gonna give you a C effort.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then it goes on
This
now.
job
But-
based on time and money.
But
Yeah.
these are the dynamics that I sit back after a day of work and I think about. Because I think about it because it impacts my livelihood. It impacts the livelihood of the other carriers in the station. It impacts the livelihood of the managers that run the station. And I think it's a lot of the questions we have to ask culturally before we can ask them even of a business entity.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, who or what in the culture is even asking these questions? Right now, the culture is all about entertainment. We will, and I played music in high school, so I understand what it takes to be an artist. But we have become in love with celebrity so much in my lifetime that we really do devalue craftsmen.
Yep.
Craftsmen and women. We devalue that brother or sister who does what we do. We devalue that brother or sister who's a plumber, an electrician. We devalue the garbage men and women. These are crafts that provide and have provided for a lot of families in our community. Let's be.
Well, no, I could say to that. I say like you said, growing up, basically, you kind of idolize. I say like, in my perspective, like even though my dad was a septic driver, I like that. All right, he was a strong man that led, like worked perceptively. Like I say, he wore proud, basically. He stood up, he just put his clothes on a certain way. Like I say, like just like you said, that stuff is overlooked to a point where they say that it's just like I guess we kind of like push it back, like, well, all right, they're just there, basically. But like you said, nothing takes but an effort to say like, all right, you said, well, like back then, you might need a garbage guy money, basically, or something like that to the point too. So like you said, people do divide it because they feel like it's just a overlook, or well, you supposed to do that. Okay, we don't. How can I? I'm trying to think, but
Well, it's like nowadays people want attention and to be gratified for certain things, and it's like that's not a like the craftsmen and women, we're not in position to be like glorified for certain stuff.
yeah.
So it's like if you're not getting glorified or making this, it's like they kind of throw it away. It's kind of like American society in general, how they trying to get rid of the middle class. It's like you either rich or you poor. It's like you either famous or you're not. You either doing this or you that or that. So
What if I ask the question this? Because then I'm big on responsibility. Because at the end of the day, I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror and I know I have a job to do. What if you work at your craft for 10 years? For 10 years. And for every day during those 10-year period, good job. You're a good carrier. I can depend on you. You're a dependable carrier. You woke up every day for 10 years. Your customers knew your value. Your family knew your value. Because at the end of the day, they see you limping in from work. They see you when you're sore, when you're hurting. They see you after you did the 12 and 14 hours. But what if it took you as a craftsman 10 years before one person outside of your customers and your family said, you're a hell of a worker? In society today, would we do it for 10 years? No.
A lot of people know. A lot of people don't do it now. So.
I would say that depends on why you're doing it. Like, are you doing it for that, or are you doing it to support yourself and your family? Because if you're doing it to support yourself and your family, I don't really care about it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm about to say like, but you know if you're doing a good job or not.
Yeah.
As an adult, you know what effort you're giving.
Yeah, but it changes what you do and how you do it. It does. Like, just being in a post office and being a carrier, as a CCA, when I was a CCA, it would have meant more as a CCA if they said, you did a good job. Because now, I mean, at the beginning of the CCA, you know you're on the right track. You know I'm doing the job, I'm doing it right. Even my manager or supervisor approves how I do the job. It means a lot when you're first coming as a CCA.
Mm-hmm.
As a regular, it may not mean much. You've been in there a minute, it may not mean a lot. But if they did it consistently for 10 years, I believe it would change the morale of the station. It would make you believe that management cares. It would make you believe that they're worried about my well-being on the street when it's pouring down raining and it's icy and it's slippery outside. It would change. You won't think, oh, they don't care. You won't think that because they're telling you, you know, a good job. And 9 times out of 10, if a manager or supervisor is telling you you did a good job, they're asking you how your day was too.
Okay, so let me ask, because y'all are more experienced than I. Acceptance amongst the craft. How important is that? I ask that because, okay, the day after Christmas. It's the day after Christmas. Or, no, I don't want to say the day after Christmas, but it's a heavy day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not pristine conditions. It's either, let's say it's either too hot or you got it's a heavy day and it's snowing on the ground. as a carrier, is it fulfilling when I don't even have to say anything, but a carrier that says been doing it for 25, 26 years on his or her last leg, when they turn to you and be like, give you the head nod or some type of gesture.
Oh, you're talking about like when you come off the street and they be like,
Yeah.
like you did the thing today.
Like you say, we all get, I'm going to use our time frame. We all get in at 8. It's nasty. The level, I've experienced the station on these nasty days and heavy, the station's quieter.
Oh yeah.
It's more focused. And I take that as everyone knows what they're getting ready to walk into.
Oh yeah, you mostly locked in. Yeah.
Lock in.
So it's a force day. So everybody's doing 12. What means more?
Stop it. Stop it.
What means
Yeah.
Because you don't do something.
everyone's maxed.
Alright.
Everyone's maxed.
Alright.
What means more? That older carrier, and the reason why I say 25 to 26 years, because we know that's the final term. When they are at their case, probably sitting on their stool, and they just look at you and,
Like if you came back at a reasonable time or on time
you came back on time,
in one piece.
one piece, all mail delivered, all packages delivered, all annotations if necessary made. You came back soaked, fatigued, and the old carrier in the station gave you a head nod. Good job. Does that mean more?
Am I a CCA?
All right.
You know what? Let's do both levels, because I will say I've experienced that as a CCA, where a senior carrier came up to me and gave me kudos, and it did mean the world to me.
Yeah, yo, it does. As a
Yeah,
CCA,
no,
it does.
And to I'll never forget. There's this carrier. I was scared of him. Not as we're all
At our station?
we're all men.
Stop, Rick. Let the man explain.
I was somewhat in awe, somewhat I understood. I was the rookie, and this was the captain. So let's say so in a sense, Magic Johnson, he's the rookie,
Yeah.
but then there's Kareem.
Okay. All right.
Kareem has the aura.
Okay.
And it meant a great deal for that particular carrier to ask how my day went.
I can speak to this. I've been on a route before, like where I done a route was super hard, and the fact that like my experience, I'll use my experience CCA. So at my station was, I was a mania basically. There was a route that nobody wanted to do basically. It was it's a route, Aaron, on Main Street. Nobody likes on that route, on 4 route. Nobody wanted to do the route, so I was CCA. So I would get put on every day because you're a CCA. And then it got to a point where I accomplished it, and I kept doing it better than everybody else. And it got to the point where everybody kept asking me about questions. Y'all all 4 regulars here, why are y'all asking me about the question of the route? Like, it's my route. Even though I do it every day and I master it. So it got to the point where I felt like, I'm like, yeah, I'm one going on basically. I know about all the routes, I know about each individual route y'all basically doing. I accomplished it. I know how to do it certain because you are all scared of it because, oh, I don't want to do this the third. Well, if you just do it a certain way, that it's not that hard. I feel like people get to a point where on certain routes or certain particular things, they psych themselves out. It's going, oh, I can't do it. And it's like you can't psych yourself out with that anyway. Like, and then getting the kudos from the older carriers like that too. Now I can kind of like look like, well, why can't you do it? You been here 25 years. I can do it. Or why are you so scared of it? Like, it's not that hard about that.
To piggyback on that real quick, like, it do feel good as a CCA to get kudos, like, especially if you're doing a hard route, like 23 route. Because when I came in there, I did 23 route, They was like, oh, that's the hardest route in the station. I'm like, how you gonna say that? Like, don't try to define what my experience gonna be in the post office.
Exactly.
Like, this might be easy to me. So
Or you might pick it up faster. My certain thing, I might pick up things faster than you did as a CCA.
yeah, like for me, like I like thanks, but like don't try to like throw some negativity my way. I don't like that.
I think on that note, I had a conversation. Mr. Gray blessed my soul when we had this conversation.
I knew it was something. I knew it.
Because he talked about this particular route in terms of an artist.
Mm-hmm.
About how, it's a puzzle.
Right.
And you can begin to piece that puzzle together according to you. It may not look straight block by block.
Mm-hmm.
But, he having this conversation with him let me know that no matter what the route or where the route is, that if you're really into the craft of delivering this mail, that you'll begin to look at certain landmarks and be like, okay, I know this house is on that block, but you know what? I can hit it from this block. And he was sharing it with me, and I could just. I heard the conversation back when I was doing 53 route. And each time I would do Old Line, 800 Caledonia, and I would notice it's about 4 houses that are by themselves. And I was like, you know what,
Yeah.
there has to be a way I can tie this and make this one big loop.
Yep.
And I would go to my case, remembering the conversation that me and Mr. Gray had, and I would look at it on the case, and then I would go out there the next day, and then one day at the case it clicked. It's all about how you pull it down.
Yeah, that's
Once you get over the fear, and I'll say this to any CCA, Brother Bruce told me this, Route 38.
You're gonna love this one.
He gonna love this.
You better be
Oh,
awesome,
gosh.
Bruce.
Don't let the volume intimidate you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Don't let the volume intimidate you. And between what Brother Bruce said and between what Mr. Gray shared with me, learning your craft, learning this craft, and not being intimidated by the mail volume or the package volume, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me say this, man. Like, to answer your original question, I'm on year 10, right? And one of the things that I learned is from a customer who used to be an employee.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something to me that I always remembered. And he said, like, if the customers are telling you you're doing a good job, that's what matters.
Yep.
I don't care what nobody in management says. I don't care what your coworkers say.
Yeah.
It's the people you service. They're the ones who let you know if you're doing a good job.
They will complain.
Like, a carrier like myself, like, no disrespect to management, if all carriers were like me, half of y'all would be fired. Because they would realize we don't need that many of y'all. Because I know my route from start to finish. I don't care if it's 8 inches of snow. It's getting done.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's getting delivered. Everything's getting scanned. All the outgoing mail's coming back. And we out of here.
Yeah.
Because once you figure out what your assignment is and you master that assignment, it doesn't matter what the elements are. You're going to get it done because, like you said, you know your landmarks, you know how to pull it down, you know how to, even if something like snow happens, you know how to make the adjustment and the audible to make it so that it doesn't break you. And your customers will always remind you that you are doing an excellent job. And that's all that really matters. Because those are the people that, at the end of the day, carry you as a carrier.
Yeah, that really do feel good because I save every thank you card that they be giving me and stuff. I put it on my case and all that. I got taped it to my case.
That 8 inches of snow ain't me though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that right now.
if I can interject on a point that you brought up, and to the listeners out there that are CCAs, I want you to listen to this, and I should have led with this. whether it's 12 months or 24 months, you're not going to know it all.
That's right,
That's
man.
definitely true. Yeah.
So each day, each route, each block is a learning experience.
Mhm.
Oh, you can say that. Sheesh. Whew.
It's all about the process.
I freed my soul back there on the parking lot when I let go of that timetable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because the timetable, it's stressful.
Oh, whew.
Because you don't realize each day is a grind.
Mhm.
To my CCAs out there, each day is a mental and physical, and again, if you are into this sector of life, a spiritual grind. Because you are going to embody everything. You're gonna work past points that you thought you had. You're gonna hear things that force you to put mental and emotional barriers up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're gonna be forced to be disciplined. Disciplined. I think I think that's something that's missing from modern society, that word in its proper definition.
Absolutely.
Because as a CCA, and this is just my experience from Roxborough Station, if you're young enough and vibrant enough to do this, by all means do it. But I think it not wise, while you're a CCA, to party hard Friday and Saturday night.
Oh,
yeah.
dude.
Because you're gonna be
Oh, you.
I don't know about that.
well, no, I'm
You said
not.
already experienced.
I'm not saying be a hermit.
All right.
You work hard. Take some time to celebrate that,
Right.
but be disciplined enough to know that you can't burn that candle at both ends all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
You can't all the time.
Because as a CCA, I was AI on Friday as a CCA. Yeah.
You was more AI on Friday. You was
You
more.
know,
You ain't gonna get that. You
Sundays
more on Friday to Sunday.
I am.
I can attest to that.
I will say this. I did the military at 18. Between my active duty time and my state time as a reservist, I did it up until, I want to say 14 years. So I did it for
Nice.
14 years. I started as a CCA my 38th year of life. I'll be 39, God's willing, this August. August 28th.
Gotcha.
I know my structure. I know pretty much what I can and can't do
Mhm.
in order to do what I need to do the next day.
Mhm.
So the point I made previous to this, I am not saying you have to be a hermit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is realize that for that time that you're a CCA, you're gonna have to put things in place. Do not disturb on your phone is a great feature.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I remember the beloved the brother down at that teaches at the training academy. I admire him to this day. Mr. John, I believe is his first name.
Shout out to John.
Oatmeal and toast make a great breakfast.
Okay, because it sits on your body. It fills you up.
I
It's
start
not cold there.
and it gives you that physical energy to go through. I from personal experience, I've noticed that. So all these nuggets, again, unfortunately, the way the structure is, as a young CCA, you have to go out and seek this out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's these nuggets that you need to learn. Your warm up spots on a cold day.
Yep.
You know, shade. When you need water, you know, if you don't bring your own, where to go.
What house gonna be water?
Bathroom spot.
Bathroom spots. You know, carrier. He's a retired carrier. He lives on this block, 4 houses down. Whenever you get a chance, you can talk to him.
Yeah.
That type of stuff builds you up. Because I'm going every CC out there. Hear me clearly, and I'm not. Don't take this as an authoritative word, but it's going to come. You're going to have that day where that truck is filled, that mail is heavy, that sky is gray, and you got not only that route but 3.5.
That was yesterday, man.
Come on, man. This guy. Hey, yo, stop this.
You're gonna have that day, and making it through that day is gonna mean more to you than you think.
Yeah, especially down the road.
Especially in.
So, as we about to wrap this up, man, but you know, everybody had their last words before we get up out of here.
Okay. Oh yeah, I would just say that one thing that that would help me when I had those type of days where it's like the truck is filled, it's like a bunch of stuff. I would say preparing the stuff inside the truck, like the mail and packages inside the truck, helped me out a lot. So I know, all right, I just hit that in order, and then I just take my time with it. That helped me a lot.
I would say that the same thing also too. And also having somebody to talk to. Basically, I had my wife in particular at the time. She carried me. I didn't have these guys, but even now, having a circle like that, we talk to each other amongst each other. Like we all can bounce over each other. Like to get through certain things. Like it's times I had conversations with him. I talked to him more mostly than anybody. We had conversations stuff.
Him got a name.
Black and Rick, sorry. But I had a conversation with Aaron. I'm like, yo, we had a conversation. I'm like, all right, I'm not doing this. All right. I'm like, it's just we have our conversation, but it's good to have a circle to help you with that. Like I said, feeding off energy and talk to somebody and letting things out. All right, well, let them know how you feel. It helps out a lot.
Well, I like to, I'm a thinker, but I like to think of the job as like a game. I love video games. So I think of a job like Tetris. If, put the pieces together, the pieces fit, it works right. Not just the mail, the packages, but the blocks as well.
Exactly.
Structure it the way it helps you to get the best out of you. And look, that's the job.
You, Mr. Sean.
I would just say, master this job to the point where you don't need to be managed, because you know what to do. Come in knowing that all I need is a clerk to throw my stuff, an environmental technician to make sure the area is clean so I don't slip and fall, and I'm gonna do my part and I'm up out of here. Master the job to the point where you're not asking, the person in management, because half the time they don't really know what to do or they don't care. Learn your route, learn your job, learn your profession, and learn how to master it where you can handle it and be a leader. Last words, Mr. Blanks.
I first want to say, and I mean this from my most inner man, thank you, brothers, for this.
No problem, man.
No problem.
No problem. Thank you, man.
This is it's therapy to be able to talk to not only brothers of the craft but brothers of life, and I'll be forever grateful for this opportunity and this time. And then I'll just say this to my fellow CCAs out there, whether you're at Roxborough, whatever part of Philadelphia you're from, you're a part of this craft. Look at what you're doing through the lens of the craft, learn the craft, and let everything else fall where the chips may. Because if you know your craft, if you know the framework in which you do your craft, everything else is outside of your control. But if those 600 stops, 500, 400, how many ever stops you have that day, make each stop the best you can. And I think that's 80% of the battle.
Absolutely.
So again, thank you, brothers. Thank you, listeners, because I realize you made an investment that even if it could give dividends, you can't get it back, and that is of your time. So thank you all.
And if you like this episode, by all means, hit the like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed, comment below, let us know how y'all feeling, especially CCAs, what y'all experiences is, what you've learned, from being on the job so far. We really love to hear it and get some feedback from y'all, man. So, signing off, episode 30 on the Route Podcast. Like I always say, be safe out there. If you're a carrier, be safe on the route.
And they never safe on the road.
It's a new